I know this slide isn't exactly easy to read, but it really just represents the fact that jobs are being created in upstate New York. And when we have people come from outside of the region and experience what we experience, we might take it for granted. The beauty of the autumn, the education, the 19 schools that we have over, really, sometimes the numbers I've heard are like more than 80,000 students that are here in the region just ready to work, and we have access to so much. And so it really matters to have other people from outside of the region interested in the Rochester area. And so with that, I would like to invite our guests up. I'd like Michael and Yash to come on up, and I'll introduce you once you're actually here, please. Right. So in just a minute, we're going to hear from Hemaraj. I want to introduce him. We're so excited. He came really, and I think he brought this wonderful weather with him. So you are welcome anytime. And you can come in February too, I hope. That would be great. Yes. So Yash is a partner at BG Ventures, which is an Enterprise 4.0 company that does a lot with cross-border innovation and helping create access between countries. You know, at one time, people used to think that you were global or regional, and now it just seems that your ability to do business anywhere in the world is important. And so he's working on technology that makes it really easy and easier to both buy and sell all over the world. In addition to leveraging AI and the ways that automation can actually increase business process. And he's going to tell you more about that himself, I'm sure. The other thing, we're so very lucky to have in our own town, Michael Thaney, who does innovation at Constellation Brands, but also runs the startup grind here in Rochester. He's also a partner he teaches, is a partner at Wefunder, or how do they say that, Wefunder?
Venture partner.
He's a venture partner with Wefunder, and has been a tech startup coach for a long time here at RIT and many other places, and probably someone that you're going to be speaking to shortly or within the next year with your great idea. And so with that, I would really like them to lead us through a discussion for the next 20 minutes. Thank you.
Can you guys hear us?
Oh, we're going to have you, yeah, what we're going to do.
How's this? All right. So thank you for the introduction, Jen, and thanks to Marl for putting on this event and everything you're doing in the city. Again, Michael Thaney, Chapter Director of Startup Grind. The Startup Grind mission is to connect and inspire and educate the startup community. So hopefully you guys have a chance to experience some of our events. Feel free to reach out, say hi afterwards. We could catch up and get you involved if you want to get involved. But with that being said, also want to say thanks to Yash for traveling out here, making the trip. I heard you guys took a red-eye flight from the West Coast over here to Rochester. I heard there was a layover in Chicago, which I also used to live, so we're going to want to know if you guys brought me any Garrett's popcorn for anyone who's been through Chicago. But wanted to kick things off, again, say thanks for traveling. And if you could just give us a little bit more information on, ARKA Venture Labs and BGV and your role there.
Hello, everyone. And, it's an absolute pleasure to be here today. So my name is Hemaraj. To introduce myself, I'm a partner at Benhamou Global Ventures. We invest in early-stage enterprise software companies, companies that are building with AI, workflow automation, and data sets, and disrupting even some of the most traditional industries globally. So a lot of our companies are built in Israel, France, India, etc., and we help them come to the Bay Area and scale up here. In 2018, I saw India as a potential home for hundreds of startups which are building from India, products that are being built from India but focused on global enterprise markets. In order to facilitate companies like that, I created an accelerator fund to help pre-seed companies and help them connect to the US ecosystem, because most of the customers, the high-paying customers, are in this market. So we have, since 2018, we have invested in about 32 companies, 5 exits. A lot of companies have gone on to raise subsequent rounds of financing. A lot of these companies have crossed $1 million ARR mark. So on the back of it, we are doing our next phase of our ARKA Venture Labs as well.
Awesome. And you guys are focused in like B2B, business to business?
Absolutely.
All right. So with that, that's awesome. And how did you personally get into venture capital?
Yeah, it's a long story, but I was working at University of Maryland as a research assistant, and one of the alums actually reached out to me saying that there is an internship at a company called Flareon Technologies, and through that alum, I reached out and I got that internship. It so happened that that company about 3 months since I joined got acquired by Qualcomm. I had nothing to do with that acquisition, but the connections that I built over there continued forward. And about 1 year after my graduation from University of Maryland, the same guys called me up and said, "Hey, we're doing this startup back in the Bay Area. Do you want to get involved?" And I said, "Okay, you know what? Sure." I was in Maryland, packed my bags, moved to the Bay Area, started working with them, built teams. Did product management, got a real sense of the life of how that entrepreneurial journey is. In the mornings, we used to go and hire team members, steal them from some of the other best companies around there, and in the evening, sit and code. And it was a great time. But one thing I realized was I was innovating in an industry like wireless networks, where there are only 4 customers. In every geography, be it US, be it Canada, be it anywhere, there are only 4 customers. So it was not a very conducive ecosystem for innovation. So what I did, I said, okay, let me kind of, switch industries. I really liked working at the early stage of companies, helping founders build companies. So I said, you know what, which is that industry where I can still be involved, but I was not sure of which industry to go into. So I said, okay, I want to be involved in multiple different industries, but still at the early days. So venture was the answer. And through that, I connected with my folks at BGV, who were also investing in IoT and wireless networks. And they had some scars from investing in wireless networks. So there was a good bond that we connected over that. But all of this had a series of relationships that I built over time. And a lot of those dots now, when I look back, I could connect them. But when I was going through that, I can tell that it was those relationships that mattered during each of those transitions. So eventually, BGV was raising a fund during that time, and we connected, and I joined the firm. So that was back in 2014, and I've been with the firm since.
Awesome. So one of the things that we're all trying to build here by being part of the event tonight is community. And with a startup grind and some of the other local organizations like the Rochester Open Coffee Club, we've hosted a book club and read the book, The Startup Community Way, and tried to kind of learn about building community. And I know that's something you're very interested and passionate. So do you have any thoughts to share on kind of like key success factors for like a growing startup community?
I would say a couple of things. One, it's great that what you guys are all doing here, because it takes a village to build a startup. It requires mentors, it requires investors, it requires support from service providers, be it lawyers, be it the systems like AWS, etc. So everybody has to be involved and everybody has to be engaged. So involvement, engagement are they have to go hand in hand. So that is one mandatory condition to have. So I was on a panel like this, and there was an entrepreneur sitting next to me. And one day, he shared something very, very thought-provoking for me. He said, look, a job of an entrepreneur involves doing about 10 things and doing those 10 things all in parallel, be it hiring, be it doing marketing for the companies, going and getting sales, going and getting customers, recruiting people, sometimes working with lawyers, all of those things. So a good community, if you can make each of those 10 things 10% easier, just 10% easier. So you've made the job of the entrepreneur 2.5 times easier. So that compounding effect is what a good entrepreneurial community gives you, right? So, and it doesn't happen right out of the bat. It takes constant effort, small incremental progress. But if you can just make everything 10% easier, I think that's where real entrepreneurial communities are being built.
I love that concept of 10% better. And I guess with that, you mentioned like mentorship. So I guess we'll pause. And do we have any like founders or startup employees in the room? Show of hands. We got some people grinding. All right. So when you talk about mentorship, I think that is a key of like helping bring people up, right, and helping them grow. So do you have any like tips or lessons learned from being a mentor yourself?
So a couple of things. One, as mentors, we have to have a lot of humility. We may have our own experiences, but each startup's journey is different. So you need to be kind of aware of that. And a good mentor kind of creates this vicious cycle of like constant experimentation and constant learning. And this if you have only one without the other, it doesn't help a lot, right? If you have just kind of trying to experiment, but you're not learning from them. So a role a good mentor plays is make this a virtuous cycle, where you're continuously experimenting, but you're also helping learning from their past experiences, but also apply it to the startups, to the context that the startups are in. So creating that virtuous cycle is what a good mentor kind of helps. Yeah.
Thank you. So I guess with that and like looking into like those elements of the successful or growing startup community, we're looking to build bridges. Hence why Marl helped bring you here. What gets you excited about Rochester region, or just even getting out of the coast and knowing that you have experience with getting startups from different geographies like planted in new geographies. So what is it about our region that gets you excited?
So one thing that has happened is all businesses have become global these days. I mean, when I say global, it is not just, it has not become Silicon Valley centric. Innovation has moved away from the Silicon Valley, right? So you can acquire customers these days without even actually meeting the customers completely through Zoom. So you can access talent. And one of the best things about this area is the schools are amazing. And if you can tap into this talent base, there are a lot of innovation happening in even some of the most legacy industries. I mean, climate tech is a great opportunity, and it's not just software anymore. You're building hardware systems, you're building robotic systems. So there is a lot more diverse talent base also needed to build the next generation of enterprise companies. And that's what you get in areas like Rochester, where there are a lot of good schools, a lot of good talent, and a lot of loyal workforce, right? They're not switching around every couple of years. That's a fertile ground to build some amazing companies.
We definitely have some space here for any of your startups that want to plant an office or seed here. With that being said, like that, I guess the community and like some of the stuff that startup right now is like, we love stories and we love hearing about founders. From like the startups you worked with, do you have any good like founder stories that might resonate with folks here?
Absolutely. So it also ties back to one of the things that you said is around celebrating like what makes entrepreneurial communities kind of take. I think one of the things that Silicon Valley does, among a lot of other things, is it celebrates failures. If I may ask, what's the opposite of success? A lot of people reply back saying failure, but actually it's not. Failure is the stepping stone, right? So I think that celebrating those failures are very important. So one of the best deals that I have done is a company called Macrometa, and Chetan, who is the founder of Macrometa, he was trying to fundraise for his previous startup, and it so happened a lot of kind of black swan events happened, and he had to sell the company. And as he was coming out of that, he and I had a chat in this coffee room where he said, "Hey, I'm seeing this big mega trends around distributed computing and Lambda processing, which is like an AWS function. So I want to do something over there." And right sitting there in that room, we agreed upon saying that, you know what, Chetan, go build it. I'm going to give you like a 800K round. I'm going to give you a 200K check. And let's go put this round together. Let's start building. And that was the beginning. Since then, I mean, the media only talks about the up and up journey or the down, down and crash and burn story. But the real life of the entrepreneur is those ups and downs in every day, right? So first 12 to 18 months, there were a lot of these ups and downs. And Chetan and I worked every month, every week together to kind of solve those challenges. And a lot of VCs couldn't understand what they were doing. But today, it is one of the most sought after edge computing platforms out there. So this is a story of like, yeah, I mean, I could have said, there are a lot of different things that didn't work out in the previous startup, but giving another chance to founders, that's something that I really love because there is a lot of learning that prior experiences bring. And the second thing that I really love about entrepreneurs is resiliency. So there was a company, I will not take names, but I was supposed to give a Series A term sheet for a $9 million round. I was going to put about $3.5 to $4 million in it. The day before, I had called them to my office to issue the term sheet. The last the evening, the CRO quits. The CRO who was responsible for the next year's numbers quits. And the founders come in and, I tell him, hey, look, my partnership doesn't have conviction that, you're not going to be able to hit the next round of numbers. But here's what I'll do, go back, work on these 3 or 4 things, show me that there's a good pipeline, come back to me. And kudos to the founders, they did that. For the next 6 months, they stabilized the team, they cut their burn, and they rebuilt their pipeline. And they came back that was in June. So in December, they came back. And February, I invested in that round. And so far, when I invested, they were doing $2 million ARR. Today, they're doing $12+ million ARR within about 2.5 years. So, I mean, that the resiliency of the founders was something so impressive that, when they came back, I had to invest again. So those are amazing stories for me.
Yeah, from the experience I have with the startup programs at RIT, Anthony Testa, one of the professors there, always talks about persistence and that being a determining quality of your success. So the resiliency sounds like it lines up with that. And I guess kind of like double clicking that for your role, like as a venture capitalist, like, do you have any advice for like that you mentioned, like you kind of lost conviction because that team lost a key player? Is there like a metric or a set of metrics that are would help early stage companies kind of like focus on, right, when they're thinking about potentially going, down that path for VC, like what a venture capitalist is going to like or want to see? And then kind of like this extension of that question would be, how does somebody at an early stage kind of know when it's time to go raise or, raise an A round?
So I am a firm believer that every startup journey is unique. And sometimes, what the VC industry do, I mean, we are part of the problem here, is we invent metrics that allow us to choose some startups and say no to a lot of different startups. But what happens is there are some VCs with lot of, like a big speaker in front of them that they say, okay, these are the metrics that work and these are the metrics that don't work. One such example is burn multiple. And applying a burn multiple to any startup of different stage, be it a deep tech startup versus a SaaS startup, early stage startup versus a late stage startup, doesn't make sense. So my first advice is do not latch on to any one of those in like metrics and try to optimize for either what your investors say or what some of your advisors say. Because your journey is unique. You got to optimize for what is right for your business. So that said, as you go through the journey, right, what people look for in that seed stage to Series A journey is there a repeatable problem that you can go after? Focus on the customer, focus on the customer's problem, focus on what you can do for that problem and how can your solution help. Focus on the ROI that you can bring. And that is that seed to Series A journey, where you can show that there is a product to be built, and out of that product, you can also start selling. During that initial journey, what we are looking at is, can the founder do this? Can the founder build teams? Can the founder go and acquire those new customers and show that there is enough ROI for whatever product that they are selling. But when you get to the Series A, what we look for is something totally different. When we look for Series A, we want to see whether the company can make a transition from founder-led everything to team-led everything. Right? What I mean by that is, in the initial days, the founder is, getting the customer. The founder is basically, if their customer has a problem, doing customer service. The founder is also going and recruiting. And that has to transition once you get to Series A to a point where you can say, okay, look, my team knows how to hire. My team knows how to bring new customers. My marketing team knows how to add new pipeline into the funnel. And my customer success teams knows how to handle customer problems. That's what we are looking for, right? So you got to be able to make the transition through your seed stage when you get ready for Series A, that it is not founder-led everything. You got to have other people involved, and they can handle the burden for you. So that's kind of the transition that we are looking for. Sorry, long answer, but
we're close on time. Can I just ask a follow-up on that? Have you seen a pattern of most commonly, what is the first hire outside of the founding team? Is there a pattern for the startups you invest in?
It depends. It really depends. It's because, people often say it's the VP of sales, but I think, the founder knows when that kind of transition happens, because most of the mistakes that people have done is hiring that VP of sales ahead of kind of the founder's own conviction of building his or her own conviction that the founder can sell. And once the transition happens, then it's the right time to hire the VP of sales. So, I would say, bring the best people out there, be mission oriented, convince people on your mission. That's when you get the best talent. And in the early days, get people who are good at more than one thing, because you need that. Because sometimes, you're doing marketing, but you need that extra help on the sales side or on the customer side. You want a little bit of a generalist, but who are really skilled on one thing. So, it's kind of you don't want somebody who's only good at one thing, right? So,
T-shaped people.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. I think we're going to have to wrap it up here. We're getting close on time. Maybe we're over time. Was she staring like a hole in the back of my head? I'm sorry.
I'm here.
Thank you. And, yeah, Yash will be around. Come say hi to him afterwards.
Thank you. Thanks so much. Yeah, I think 2 questions ago, I was like, I think we're at time. But I agree. I think that these are really great questions and a great conversation. And I think one of the things that I want to do is just ask people, you don't have to be a technologist to be an innovator. You just have to be present. And one of the things that I learned here today and just listening to you, Yash, is the ability to listen is probably the most valuable skill for people in startups. Did I hear you right? And I'm thinking, as I'm looking at the community, I think our ability to listen and learn is what's going to allow us to build better bridges, in our families, in our community. And so I'm so excited again to see so many people that may not actually have a startup, but be part of the ecosystem. I did have someone that said they wanted to come, but they weren't a founder and they weren't working on a technology. Is it still okay that I come? And I said, please come, because we need teachers. Right? We need just people in the community. We need parents, whether you're a father or a mother. Every team needs support, and successful teams have just this complementary skill sets. Sometimes I feel that people put so much focus on the founder, and I know that the companies that scale are really great at building teams.